Happy Thursday, July 31st, 2025. Another month comes to an end. But at this moment, I'm coming on because we are having a Mercury Cazimi right now. If you don't know what a Mercury Cazimi is, they happen every year, at different times. But they're when Mercury and the Sun come together. And right now, Mercury is retrograding. It's been retrograding in the sign of Leo. So wherever you have Leo, you may be noticing Mercury working on that particular area of your chart. So as an example, you might get a phone call or you might get a message from someone that's from your past. That would be the case in the if it's in the 5th house or the 7th house of legal partnerships and marriages. That's happened to have been the case for me today. Interesting contacts. So we all have that somewhere in our chart, wherever Mercury has been retrograding. But today, the Sun is coming in illuminating Mercury as well. And in doing that, it's like solar rays and solar power over Mercury, the messenger, who's trying to help us out, generally speaking. When Mercury's in retrograde, it is, we usually talk about it from a negative perspective because Mercury, if it's going backwards, it's affecting the way that we communicate. It's affecting technology. It's affecting the way things move from one place to the next. So we want to be more mindful. We want to be mindful of the fact that details are going to be missed a little bit more so. I apologize. There's some cleaning in the background. But hopefully it's not too loud. The main thing for when these days occur, whether it's when Mercury's retrograding or it's direct, it can happen both. As a matter of fact, we'll have this happen again when Mercury turns around. It's going to catch up to the Sun, and that'll be in September, I believe, on the 13th. Yeah, and that'll be in Virgo 20 degrees. So, and that'll be very mercurial because that's one of Mercury's signs. In Leo, though, I've been, the last video I did, I talked a lot about that sort of like new moon Leo, and maybe that was 2 videos ago, really, about, it really asking us to express our most authentic selves. With all this transition and all this transformation happening on the planet, who do we want to be? Who have we always been or wanted to be, but we've either been conditioned or oppressed in some way, or traumatized in another way, whatever it is, whatever the thing is that has kept us from being, who we said we would be. So anyway, when a Mercury retrograde is happening, it's a time for reflection. So yes, like I said, it can interrupt communications and things like that, but it can be a time for where, we're coming back around and reviewing something. Maybe we're coming back to a conversation that's very Mercury. Maybe there was a conversation when it was going direct and now we're reviewing it during this time. It might be a good time to do that. I feel a lot of relationship stuff has been going on for people in general since the Venus and Mars retrogrades earlier this year. I just feel like people have been in these dynamics, and I think people are really trying to choose for themselves right now the way that they want to move forward, knowing the life they may have ahead of them. But I think most of us are pretty aware that it's very unknown the way this is all going to look. But it's really the thing that I think we'll also become much more aware of is that we create our own worlds. And so whatever it is you're thinking about, whatever it is you're creating, whatever it is you're expressing, whatever it is you're thinking, it creates the world that you're that you're experiencing, that you're having, however way you want to see it or look at it. So to me, Mercury's helpful because Mercury is trying to help us think, a different way when it's in retrograde, or reflect on something from a different perspective. Maybe you had an argument when it was direct in Leo, which it could be because, Leo can be quite expressive, a little dramatic. But now it's retrograding, so I'm like, okay, maybe I need to clean up what I did there. I didn't mean to make a scene. So that would be a really good example, of a way that one could work with Mercury, in a retrograde, if that was the kind of thing that happened when it was direct. There might be something else happening for you, like maybe it's around contracts needing to be relooked at or agreements in that regard. Maybe it has something to do with a move being delayed or all the parties that are involved in that process. So for you. Mercury retrograde is Mercury retrograde. It will go direct on August 11th. So right now it's going to be retracing steps from where it's been, for the betterment of the last, 4 to 6 weeks. That time frame. It's this Leo energy, though, in particular. It feels like it's really around that new moon that we had just over a week ago, actually, today. It's hard to believe a week has gone by. Anyways, so the thing about a Sun conjunct Mercury for you is that it's a good opportunity to meditate. It's a good opportunity to, even tonight, write a little note, put it under your pillow and say, Mercury, any messages, send them through in my dreams and make sure that I remember them or integrate them in a way. Being open to conversations, being open to, why someone or something might be coming into your life today, or why that thought is coming in, or why that idea is coming through in the way that it is. So just be on the lookout of all of that. The other thing I wanted to note that happened last night is Venus went into Cancer, and I feel like that's going to be really helpful for a lot of us. Partially, I think we need to be protecting ourselves quite a bit during times like this, because we're going to be pulled in lots of directions. Our emotions are going to be pulled in lots of directions. There's no shortage of tragedy going on around the planet from what is pumped through media right now. So it's really, though, if you when I sometimes just walk around any given day, I just go, it's like any given day. There's just someone telling me it's some other way. Now, I'm not saying to be in denial of the truth, but what I'm saying is that we need to appreciate wherever we actually are when we're there. And so that would be my recommendation, is to notice that, to have some gratitude for that. And I think Venus going into Cancer is going to have us feel more protective of ourselves and our relationships, and, wanting to be around more people who are more sensitive to our needs in that way. But it also being really good for boundary setting. So if there is something that, through this retrograde you're working through, I do think Venus in Cancer is a bit helpful, in sort of protecting you in the process of the review, let's just say. The other thing I wanted to say is that Chiron retrograde, which I brought up yesterday, it's happening at 27 degrees of Aries. And that's the furthest it's been in Aries, in my lifetime. I was born with it in Taurus, so I've never been alive when Chiron is in Aries. It's finishing it up. So at 27 degrees, it's kind of hovering around the area where a lot of the outer planets were. Now, Chiron, the way where it orbits is between Saturn, which is the last visible planet that we can see from Earth, and Uranus, which is the beginning of the unseen world. That's why I always say, for instance, the higher octave of Mercury is Uranus. So there's the earthly version communicator, and then Uranus is our connection to, other realms. And when we get, divine hits and our intuition, and, that's all very, that's part of that Uranian nature. And then the higher octave of Venus is Neptune. So where we have earthly love, there's then divine love, boundaryless love with Neptune. And then Pluto is the higher octave of Mars. So rather than it be about doing things, it's about transforming things. And so those are the outer planets. But Chiron, it orbits basically between what we can see and what we can't see. So I find it to be a very helpful asteroid, and it's why I focus on it a lot. I also focus on it a lot because it sits right next to my sun and moon and my IC, all bundled together in Taurus. So my life is very much about living the archetype of the wounded healer. That's Chiron. So as I was starting to explain with, Chiron, it's now heading towards this area where the outer planets have been. So it feels like it's joining the conversation, because it'll be next year that it moves into a new sign. But it's hovering in an area that's in relationship to where these other outer planets have been. So I wanted to note that, but also that in Virgo right now, we have Mars, and it's forming what we would call an inconjunct, angle with Chiron at the same time that it's turning around and retrograding. So it feels to me like Mars is wanting us to have an adjustment as it relates to our healing process. Now, that makes sense along the way. When we're on any journey, there's going to be adjustments. And I feel like when we're getting into these later degrees of any sign, there's going to be adjustments because we are mastering something at the same time we're getting ready to move into a new sign. So Chiron is the wounded healer. It represents some place we were wounded, usually at a young age in life. I developed a whole course on Chiron because you can go back and see very specific transits, very specific dates that coordinate with very specific parts of, one's life. So it's really, 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 revealing. It really is helpful at getting at the root of, what plagues us sometimes. I was a person, I've been plagued by, not Chiron early when I didn't know what it was, just as I was sort of plagued by being a projector before I knew what it was to be a projector. Now I understand those natures a bit more and I can kind of lean into it and actually see the gift. And that's really the whole point of Chiron, is that we see that wherever we've been wounded, we've done enough work in that area of our life that we can now give back as a gift. Like we can be the actualized or healed version of that wound. And then be able to help others that have this, there's millions of other people on the planet having the same wound somewhere else. And so that's the way that we can help each other. So I'm bringing this up because I'm 47, so I'm around the age of a lot of people who are approaching their Chiron return. So I'm getting within 10 degrees of my own Chiron return. And, that it's to say that it's a time you really want to be reflecting on, have I done the work that I need to do to heal, to liberate myself in some ways, but also to really give back to people and humanity. And so it's a really good time to check in on that. Why do I say that? Because when it comes back around to itself, it's basically having a new rebirth. You want to be in a different place at that rebirth versus having the same wound come up again and again and again, because it's literally going to go on the same pathway again. So you want it to be at least in a different place. So I'm just putting that out there for anybody who is in their late 40s, to early, getting close to 50. It's a really good time to be working on that part of your life. And that is, what part of you is wounded? How is it affecting your life? Because it usually is. And, how is it not allowing you to heal? And how can you deal with that wound? And how can you face it? And how can you, what are the things you need to heal it? So to me, this is a time frame where, Chiron just turned retrograde, which is like, we need to have a review. Mercury's already, retrograding. So it's like, I'm in review mode. It feels like, and all of this stuff is in conjunction with, Neptune, and Pluto also retrograding, who are part of basically this new world that we're creating. So this just feels like a potent time to get information as to like how to step forward. So as I was saying, you can sit and meditate, you can get a reading, you can like look into your chart a little bit, go to a free site and just, play around. Or I'm doing my little offering right now until midnight tonight. So there's a last few that are coming in right now. I will get them out within 7 days. They're just 20-minute readings, and you can pay anything above $22. Whatever you want to pay for it, you get it. I just need your email address, birth date, birth time, birth location. And if you have a specific question, I can focus the reading on that area of your life. Otherwise, I'll just give a general overview of what I see, what you're probably dealing with as far as the change and what these transits have to say. I'll just give a very quick, brief overview, but yes, it'll be about 20 minutes, and you'll see your chart on the screen. Just consider taking in some interesting information, getting quiet, getting focused on you right now, because this is a time where we really need to be doing that. That's what that new moon was about, is like you need to put yourself, Leo, at the center of your own life. And, whatever that dream was, whatever you came here to do, like we need to start thinking about how is that moving into this new world? What does that look like? So what does that look like for you? That's the big question. And are you moving forward? Because as we, to me, action means everything. It helps everything. When we're in action and we're just thinking about things and going between 100 choices or 2 choices or 1 choice over and over and over again, that's insanity. Like, it helps to take action, no matter what the action is. It just shifts the energy. My parents were just away on a trip for 2 weeks, and so I've been in their house, and I just was like working with the energy in the house and other things, just clearing and just reorganizing things. But it's pretty subtle. Like you wouldn't notice any major things, But the second my father walked in, he said, "Oh my God, I'm in a new house." He could like feel it immediately. So that made me feel so good, like that we can we can do so much with what we already have, and to make it easier, to make our life flow better. That's what all I was looking to do, was like, how can I make things flow better in this house so it's easier on everybody, especially for people who are aging, and like, how can I like have all the things you need in one area so it's one less frustration. So we are the creators, of our life. And so it's a time to, how do we want to express ourselves? How do we want to create space? What do we want to do with our time on earth? Like, what did you come here to discover? What did you come here to teach? What did you come here to, heal? Any of those things. Whatever it is, put it at the center of your life right now. That's kind of what it feels like to me. We're in this like vibe since that new moon. Excuse me. So that's what I got. Mercury is your friend. Don't be scared of Mercury retrogrades. It's a time to slow down. Things have been moving awfully fast over the last, 6 months in particular, since those retrogrades turned around. Feels pretty much since February. We've been zooming. And so it's time to slow back, catch up with yourself, catch up with your life. Start just like kind of, am I where I want to be? Can I do? What am I not facing? Do I need help facing it? I'm in certain things in my life right now where I need help facing, and I asked that help. And in these last 2 weeks, like, I've gotten more accomplished and done in that chunk of time as far as taking action. That was what I was getting at, is that the action, just doing little things, leads to another thing, and it changes the whole thing up. It's when we keep everything up here, it gets really stuck. So be mindful of making any big decisions during, retrograde season, but definitely reflect on decisions you've already made, and if there's ways even that, you can shift things so that they feel easier for you. So, okay, that's all I got for now. Take advantage of the reading if you like. Again, it's over tonight at midnight. You can email me at kelly@kellydrury.com, KELLYDRURY. You can DM me through here. If I get the contact by midnight, you're in. It'll take me 7 days to do the readings I have and send them out, but I'll probably get them done before that. It's just been a busy few days, so I'm going to be doing them in the next couple. All right, enjoy the Cazimi. Ciao.